Greetings, Nash Vegas. He is Blaine Bishop. I am Brad Hopkins. We're here till 3 o'clock, and we are brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Titans Minicamps are underway at this point, and Brian Callahan, the head coach, is at the podium, and we're going to go there live and listen to him right now.
Yeah, well, it's a management thing. They manage him in Kansas City. We'll manage him here. And so he's working back from all the things he's got to work back from. But it'll be a management thing throughout the course of training camp and into the season.
Indications were that sweat was probably a short-term thing. Has it turned into a longer-term thing?
No, I mean, when you talk about short-term versus long-term, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or three, that's kind of how, at this point, what it is. He'll be ready and available for the start of training camp for sure. Should be out here maybe next week. We'll see, but it's still considered a short-term.
Also a short-term thing with Jeff?
Yeah, correct.
The pressure part, how tough is it to distinguish maybe when you credit a guy with a sack, and how's that determination made, and is that sometimes met with conflict?
Yeah, oh yeah. There's never sacks, if you're asking me. No, there's definitely a balance. I mean, we want those guys to be mindful of the quarterback and not enter that area. We know when guys are free and if it's a sack, and we know when guys have won a rep. I'm pretty fair about that. Now in the moment, I might not be, just because I like seeing them get all riled up. But we're all on the same page on what a sack's going to look like when the pressure's coming. It's we all know. We're just trying to make sure that guys stay off the quarterback and stay out of the pocket so that we don't hit hands on helmets and all that stuff. So that part is usually pretty fun though, because they're all looking for everything's a sack to the defense. And that's not always the case. So
I know it's like you said, it's short term and there's nothing you can really do about injuries. But how difficult is that for a rookie in the first off season to be kind of missing time a little bit?
Yeah, it's never ideal. It's not. You never want to miss any time if you can help it. There's an adjustment period that guys go through that you want them to be out and present for as much as possible. But again, there's not much you can do about it. And as long as guys are still on top of the mental side, the physical work kind of comes along with it. There's plenty of time for that still. But certainly not what you want. You don't want to miss time if you can help it.
How much of a believer are you in the year two jump, especially for a quarterback? And is it altered any by the fact that you're putting in a new system? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of improvement that happens when players go from their first to second year. And maybe it might not be necessarily a statistical jump either. They just become so much more comfortable playing the game. There's so much more around them that they're aware of. There's so much more. They're more comfortable in their system, the techniques that are asked, and then what it feels like to play. There's always a big jump, I think, from year one to year two, just like there is sometimes in the season where, that first or second week to that third or fourth week looks a lot different sometimes. So I believe in it. I think there's something to that just because of the experience that they gain from year one to year two. And the system probably, may limit it just a bit because you're not jumping from year one to year two with the same techniques and coaching, so there might be a little give and take there. But, I think there's a huge improvement usually from the first year to the second year.
Has it been tougher than you expected to get a read on what you have defensively with so many of the guys missing or injured or out?
Not really. I think I got a pretty good feel for what we are on defense. The guys that are here and practicing, we got a great feel for. Some of the guys that are still returning to play, I kind of know what those guys are about too. So what it looks like together, I'm anxious to see it, but I got a pretty good feel for what I think we're capable of on defense.
Bill mentioned the things he liked about Sadiq on film. Mm-hmm. How much have you seen those things translate into what you can see out of an offensive lineman?
Yeah, no, you see Sadiq's strength and power. Those things do show up. His athleticism. And he's learning a lot of new techniques as well, so that's been fun to see him grow. You see him starting to take the next step kind of as the days have gone by here, so been good to see from him. So there's a lot to like about Sadiq, and he's got some experience playing as well, so you hope that he's another guy that can really ascend as he learns more and more.
We've seen or heard rave reviews about trailing from you, mm-hmm. and guys in the receiver room, guys in the corner room, but we also see him working today as a gunner. If he winds up fourth in line at the position, no matter how good he is he going to have to contribute on special teams, and what can he do there?
Absolutely, he's going to have to contribute. You only get so many hats on game day, and if he's one of those guys on game day, we're going to have to find a place for him because those special teams guys like him should be great special teams players on top of it, just because of his size and speed. And so the gunner thing is something I think he's very capable of doing. There might be some more roles for him in the other phases as well. But yeah, anytime you're not the full-time starter, you're going to have to contribute somewhere on game day. And I think Trey's attitude and approach to special teams has been fantastic. And so I'm excited to see what he could do for him. I think he's an asset on special teams.
Another guy that is getting a long look there.
Yeah, you have to. Just same reason. If you're not one of the top 2 or 3 guys, you're going to have to contribute on teams. And he's a guy in that mold that if you're trying to get a hat on game day and be one of the 46 active, you got to play a role on special teams, especially as a skill player.
Along those special teams lines with the new kick return rule and all of that, how do you go about, does it change who you put back there as far as the skill set, and at what point are you guys as far as in strategizing how you're going to approach it?
Yeah, Colt's doing a really good job of researching and playing with different lineups and combinations of what that might look like. We don't know yet. That's the hard part is there's a lot of unknowns, and I think there'll be a little bit of chaos in the preseason with it, just in terms of everybody trying different things. So yeah, there's a lot of different lineups and personnels that you can mess around with and see what might work. And again, we won't really know until we see it live in an NFL game. But there's some opportunities for some different guys to do things in that particular phase of the special teams.
I've heard some people refer to that as an additional offensive play. Mm-hmm. So that being said, does that change? You mentioned guys who are non-starters, mandatory playing special teams, but does that change where you have the potential to put a starter back there fielding?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you'll see a lot of guys. I think you'll see some running backs back there around the league. You'll see some designated returners. You'll see a different style of returner than maybe the traditional kickoff returner. You might see guys that are better with the ball in their hands that maybe aren't returners in the sense that they're the punt returner or the kickoff returner. There's a little bit more flexibility for the play because it's going to be so unique and shorter distance and shorter coverage, and the ball is going to get in their hands quicker. So there's definitely places for guys that maybe not in the past would be your traditional kick returner that they're a starting running back or receiver, or they have some skill with the ball in their hand, and they have a chance to maybe make an impact there.
Spot, you mentioned Traylon could do other things. That potential spot, look at him as a returner.
Sure. Yeah, there's absolutely. He's big and strong and fast, and there's a chance that if we can get more reps of it and see him do it, there's certainly an opportunity there for him.
We say everybody looks good in shorts. And
yeah.
How do you determine right now if somebody's doing well?
I look at it more for the process oriented, as far as do they know what to do? Are they really good in the meeting? Can they take whatever's being taught technically from the meeting room to the field? And then when they get chances to show that they can make a play or two, it's easier in the passing game, obviously, than it would be up front in the trenches. But you want to see guys transferring skills for what they're being taught from the drill work into the teamwork. It is hard to know the physicality part of it and what that's going to look like, but you kind of have a feel for the guys that are doing things the way you want it done, and they're making progress towards fixing a technique or doing a better technique. That's more what I look at. The physicality part, I think, is for another day and time, but right now is more about the process of in the building, in the meeting room, how they handle all the learning and how they handle the techniques and fundamentals that are being taught, and can they apply it in a team period, even if it is a tempo down team period. Are they where they're supposed to be with their hands, the eyes, all those things? That's sort of how we evaluate those guys right now.
What did you say with James Williams as he's developing as a rookie?
Yeah, he's got a ways to go, like all the rookies do. There's a lot of learning in place. He's obviously switching positions too, from a safety in college into a linebacker spot, and we think he's got a chance to make that transition and be a pretty good linebacker. The way those linebackers are in the NFL now, they're all lighter and faster. A lot of them are converted, kind of big safeties that convert into linebacker spots. So it's a unique developmental angle to take on a guy like him, and I think he's got the traits to make that switch and potentially be an impact player for us as a linebacker down the road. And again, he's going to have to make it on special teams too. That'll be an important part for him as well.
You mentioned last week, I think, that tweaking Will's base just a little bit. The footwork. How's he taken to that, and what are you kind of seeing?
That's been great. I think one of the things I enjoy about Will is he's incredibly coachable. He's got a great perspective, and he's got great awareness of his body mechanics. You know, some guys, it's a natural thing. They just feel what you're coaching, and he's done a great job. I think he sees the benefit in his mechanical improvement and his accuracy. Been really pleased with how much he's taken and translated into actually doing it, which has been fun to watch.
Solidify the foundation you put into place in this 3-day window this week, and is there any benefit to being forced to go inside today or having the pressure, just kind of those extra things that add a little adversity or pressure to what these 3 days are?
I mean, that's what the NFL season is. You know, you have to adapt, you have to be flexible. You're going to have stretches of good play, you're going to have stretches of bad play, you're going to have things go wrong that you didn't anticipate. So anytime that you can keep your team ready to pivot without having to do much poking and prodding, they just sort of go with the flow and answer the bell, whatever you're asking of them, that's been fun to see. We have a pretty resilient team, I think. We'll find out a whole lot more as we get closer to the season, but anytime you can do things that are hard in practice or hard in your daily process, it certainly makes the transition when it happens for real a whole lot easier and much more prepared to bounce back from whatever it is that you're facing that day, that drive, that game.
A couple weeks ago, you mentioned now just how excited you are to use Tajay and Tony and just the versatility you have with them. Considering the kind of the weapons you guys have on the outside, the attention that they're going to get, how do you? I mean, just in terms of creativity, like what you guys can potentially do with them because of that attention going to the receivers.
Yeah, there's you end up getting a lot of one-on-ones, which is, you know, ultimately what the NFL in most passing situations is can you win the one-on-one matchup, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean a wide receiver on a corner. Those one-on-ones can be tight ends on safeties or tight ends on linebackers or backs on linebackers. Those are the matchups that you try to exploit. You try to find whatever matchup you can find that is to your advantage. And a lot of times when you have backs like those two guys, they're going to be the matchup advantage against linebackers most of the time. And so you try to find every which way you can to put them in that space so they can go beat what is likely a lesser athlete. And they both have the ability to do it. And so as we get closer to game planning and less installing of a system, now we have a chance to be a little more free and creative with how we deploy them in the formation and use them against players that we think they can go beat.
What have you seen from Gibby and how he's kind of taking command, especially in calling out what Denard wanted to see today?
Really pleased with where Gibbs at. He's got a little bit of experience behind him now. He's incredibly smart, and I think the way you ask the question is the best way that you see command from him, which is what you need from that spot. And he knows what to do. He knows how to get guys lined up. He's got a little bit of experience now, and so a player like him has a lot of value. And he's been a pleasant surprise as he's taken a leadership role in that room and been able to take over a little bit more of the communication part as well, obviously because Kenneth is not in every rep right now because of the return to play process. So it's a chance for him to really take hold of it, and he's done a really nice job.
How does that command offset some of the maybe athleticism that he's not at the top of the scales on?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that you don't have to necessarily be a high-end athlete to be a good linebacker. You know, I think there's a lot more that goes into playing linebacker. There's the instincts. There's the speed at which they can read and diagnose and trigger and make plays on the ball. It's knowing where to match in the passing game. It's knowing, understanding concepts. So there's a lot of ways that guys that may not be the high-end, high-weight speed guys that can make a long living in the NFL doing things the right way. And I think that that's one of the things I think stands out about Gibb is his ability to know what to do and when to do it is what's going to separate him.
How much is the Juku kind of taking advantage of the right tackle reps he's getting? I know pads are not on, but with NPF and Duncan's availability limited, how much is he kind of banking reps and taking advantage of it?
He's doing everything that you would want a player in that situation to do. He takes it very serious. He's outstanding in the meeting room. He's taken the scheme and he's learned it. I've been really surprised that, you know, he's a guy that I didn't know much about, and as he's gotten more opportunities, he started to show up. And that's when you're a guy in that position, that's all you can ask for. And so he keeps stacking good days together. And so again, we'll see when we get to training camp what that looks like. But he's done everything you could possibly do with an opportunity that he's been given, and that's always good to see.
What did you know about Harold before you got here, and then what have you seen from him in the building?
I've had to play against Harold a few times, and so I'm well aware of what he can bring to the table. He's a really, really good football player. I love his energy. I love the way he bounces around. I had to slow him down in our walkthrough period there for a minute. He was flying, but I just have a ton of respect for what he's done. He's incredibly smart. He really studies football, and he's got the physical tools and talent to match it. And so I think it's a pretty formidable pairing with Arden and Harold on the edges. Those guys have played some pretty good football for a while now. So it's good to have him back in the building and have him around some too, which has been great.
Dad was a award winner today.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Nice to see him get recognized for what he's done over the years.
That was pretty cool. He to be recognized for a lifetime achievement award, I think in any field is a pretty tremendous honor. It's one that I don't think he takes lightly, but it's cool for me to be able to tell that to him. But yeah, he's certainly deserving of it. I mean, what he's done over his career and the players he's helped along the way, one, become really good players, and two, make a lot of money. And that's ultimately what you want to do as a coach, is put those guys in position to have success. And really cool moment for him to be able to offensive line coaches don't get honored very often like that. And so very deserving and proud of him. It's pretty cool for him.
You tell him that in like a private setting, or is that?
No, I told him when we broke the team down. Okay. Well, he was talking about whatever happened the last play before we brought it up, and so he didn't even hear me. I told the team that he wins this award, and I look over and he's talking to Scott, and he kind of looks at me like, "What did I miss?" I was like, "Come on over here. We need you." So he said a couple brief words and just was thankful for the honor. But yeah, he was kind of in full coach mode and didn't really understand what I was telling him in the moment. So everyone's cheering for him, and he's looking at me like, "What is going on?" So.
Can you help us understand the limitations on the number of people we're allowed to talk to after these practices?
It's just kind of how it's always been for me. It's just open locker rooms in the spring, put guys in a tough spot. And one of the things I believe in, and this isn't a you thing, it's a me thing. It's as we started to build our culture here, I didn't want guys to have to speak on something that they hadn't experienced yet. And so I wanted to make sure that we got to know the players, they got to know us. And so when they were asked questions about how things go, what we're doing, scheme, and all that stuff, they had things to answer. And so it's more of a me thing. Wanted to make sure that those guys were prepared to be in front of you guys and be able to speak on the things that you want them to speak about. So that's generally the off-season thought process for me. You got it.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Where'd you get the shirt?
Combine, when Noble did their combine last year, did some like modeling for the line. Got a bunch of them. Yeah.
Talked a little bit last week about maybe tweaking just your footwork just a little bit on the base. Your thoughts more on that and help you see anything different?
Yeah, no, I mean, quarterbacks are weirdos. We're always tweaking with something. We always like feel like something might be off. Like you saw
You look at today, there were a couple throws where you might have been a little late on, like the processing and timing and everything. How are you coming along from that perspective?
Yeah, and I think it just takes reps, and I think once I bank more of these, these concepts each, I might have 2 or 3 per concept, and we talk about it takes a whole lot more to really build that repertoire and have the answers earlier than you might have them now. So I feel like the more I see it, the more I get to rep it, the easier it'll come, and just got to study it and understand that when I make a mistake, try not to make it happen again.
I know before, last year, the perfectionist in you would probably harp on that. How have you matured to be able to just move on from those and go to the next play?
Yeah, I just feel like I think I've done a better job of that just throughout my career in general. Definitely even last year, better than I was in college. And now I feel like I'm just more in a mature, developed position where I'm able to really just learn and, take the teachings from a bad rep opposed to, letting it affect me on the next one.
How much have your wide receivers been a part of that too, specifically Tyler Boyd, who's obviously more familiar with this Callahan offense?
Yeah, I think it's just them instilling confidence in me and me continuing to give it to them. Knowing when I might be having a down day or a down period, even Tyler is as short as he's been here. He's been in my ear a couple times about, letting me know, how the kind of quarterback that he knows that I can be, and vice versa. If a guy's not having a great day, a drop or something, making the conscious effort to come back to them, not just with talking, but with the ball, and to show that I'm going to keep pushing them. So it's a give and take relationship, and we've been handling it well.
When you think back to last year and how much you were trying to learn at this point in minicamp last year as a rookie, how much more comfortable are you as you enter this week now? Yeah, for sure. Even though it is a new offense, obviously having the previous handful of weeks to be able to bank reps and have meeting time to get to know the offense would have made it a lot easier, having that time before camp last year. So just taking advantage of all that time, which I feel like I have, and thanks. And knowing that all the meeting times and all the stuff we were able to do throughout workouts and OTAs up to now has put me in a much better spot and has given me a lot more confidence. How much of that even in the leadership aspect? I don't even know. Would you wear that shirt last year at this time? You can do it pretty confidently now. No, it's funny. I was number 8 at the combine, actually. That was my combine number. This was just for the actual catalog, but the other ones I have are all with the 8, and I happened to just grab the one with the 1 today. I didn't even realize, but yeah, it's funny, but probably wouldn't have worn it last year. That's for sure.
Where are you with Josh Wiley, and what kind of bigger role do you kind of envision for him in this offense now?
I love Josh. He's a juice guy that we got on this team, and he's come along as one of those guys just this year, which has been cool to see him come out of his shell and just be a really cool and fun presence in the locker room. And he works his tail off. He's prepared every day. He puts a lot on himself. I feel like that's why we're pretty similar. And ever since we came here as rookies, we've been kind of hip to hip and being able to keep ourselves accountable. So he's made huge strides. You can tell just from the moment he got here for workouts that he really worked on himself and his body, and how he was going to approach this year, and it's paid off for him a lot, and I'm looking forward to continuing to see him develop.
How's your relationship developing with Little Kush, man?
Sorry?
How's your relationship developing with Kush?
It's been good. We've been hammering him every single day, and the whole entire offensive line, about how we're not going to hold back when it comes to cadences, and we're going to empty the bag and start using them all right now. We can't be the team we were last year with all of the shoot ourselves in the foot penalties we had, leading the league in false starts. Just not going to get it done. So they've been doing a really good job at that, and obviously he's leading that group and has a lot of great experience and has a really good hold on our protection system and our point system. So he's been great for me, and he's been great for everyone else in the offense, and I feel really comfortable with him when I get under center or when I'm in the gun with him.
How much of a believer are you in the year 2 jump for players in the league in terms of just knowing what to do, how to do it, and how much have people talked to you about how much of a difference just 1 year in the league can make?
Not too much. I think it doesn't just happen. It's not just because it's the second year. It's the work that you get to put in, and I think a lot of it has to do with being able to have that full off season with the staff and with the team, and instead of just jumping in like right around this time. But yeah, I think I've handled myself really well, and I've been able to get a good grip on this offense, and by the time we come back for camp, I'm going to know it like the back of my hand, and we're going to be able to get things rolling. So it's been a lot of fun, and I feel like I just got to keep handling this second year the right way, and everything else will fall into place.
When you look at this team nationally, for some reason you seem to be a polarizing figure. Either people love you or they hate you. How much of that do you hear, and how much of that drives you?
I don't hear much of it. I don't say. I used to be someone who kind of like take that stuff and use it to fuel me, but I feel like now I have my only source of motivation is internal, and I'm not going to let anyone else's opinions define kind of how I work. So they can say what they want, and we're going to go out there on Sundays and do our best to prove them wrong.
What changed that for you?
I think that it's just like I don't want to have to be aware of other people's opinions, and I think it's just going to bog me down. And if I'm able to just focus on myself in my circle in the locker room, then everything else will be fine.
Well, you mentioned the false starts. What are some things that you could do to avoid them, and how important is that to you going forward?
Reminders, just approaching the huddle in a way to let them know what cadence we're on, before and after. Consistency with how it's crazy. Like, you can have a different tempo in how you're calling a play in the huddle if you're not having the same exact kind of rhythm as the other quarterbacks or the same rhythm as you've been doing it. They're so used to hearing it a certain way. The second that you're saying it differently, they're only focused on hearing the play, and they might not realize like what happened before that. So being consistent with how I'm managing the huddle and just doing my best to give them reminders, not being overt about it. We can't be running up to the line saying on two. So just continuing to work and trusting them and showing that I have trust in them that we can use all sorts of cadence.
Well, last week Tyler told us Callahan's system is one that results in scoring points and winning. What has that looked like to you throughout the install so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of scoring. A lot of the install clips we see is just a lot of explosive plays, efficient plays, touchdowns. And you could see, why it works, and seeing the clips and the answers versus everything, like how everything has an answer and it's on me, the quarterback, to get to that answer as soon as possible. So that's part of the processing part of it, like being able to move on and recognize and in the back of my head know what the answer should be and seeing it and getting to it. But again, I just feel like it's going to come with reps. Like the more and more reps I get at all these different concepts and stuff, we're going to be able to see more and more of those explosive plays. And when we go out there on Sunday, we'll hopefully put up a bunch of points.
As you go through and tweak some of those mechanics that you have, worked on, you and Brian Callahan, obviously, but how does that balance with all the work that you put in with Rob Williams and QB motion? Like, how do you go about making sure that they're transferring?
Yeah, no, it's sometimes it can be difficult, like taking coaching from different people, but I feel like it's all about just what feels comfortable for you. I love everything that I do with Rob, and I feel like at the same time, like I'm able to take all those teachings and apply it to my own kind of process and mechanics, how I feel that suits me. So being able to take those teachings and then also be able to talk to Callie and take some of his opinions and a couple of considerations that he has and implementing those. It's just a mix of both, and then it's on me to decide what's best for me and what's most comfortable for me. And both sides are in on it in terms of their awareness.
Rather than being a mediator, do you plan on getting those two in contact with each other?
Yeah, I actually have. I was thinking about, if even next time I'm able to hop on a call with Rob, if he could just sit in and hear kind of how he's able to teach me throughout the session. And then afterwards, instead of seeing and learning about the teachings that he's told me, like really seeing it in action and then giving me his opinions in real time.
Between, I guess, the time OTA's in next week before training camp starts to kind of get yourself peaking for camp?
Yeah, I'll be here till mid-June. We're doing a little retreat with some skill guys, which will be fun. So get out and be able to do some studying, run some routes, and team bond and kind of chill. So we're excited for that. I'll be with my family back in Connecticut for a little bit, and then I'll come back here about a week before camp starts.
Will, working with Tajay and Tony to this point, what has that been like? Obviously you had Tajay last year, but working with Tony and then having backs with that skill set, how can that maybe open up what you guys want to do on?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. We've seen so many clips of just getting to the check down and what the backs are able to do when they're able to get the ball in their hands earlier before the defense closes on them, and how important that is to get to those check downs faster and faster and faster. and I have confidence now every single time that we drop back and whatever running back's going to be in our backfield that, dump it down and they're able to make someone miss and go get a first down. So opposed to, hanging on certain things and taking that extra hitch gives me the peace of mind and confidence to just take that second hitch back to the back, take him, and know that he can get that first too.
Yeah, that's it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
But minicamp is now a mandatory situation where the guys that are under contract, they should be in the building. We'll talk about some of those players that are on other teams that aren't and how important that actually is. But it does seem like, Blaine, that everybody's in camp. We heard from Brian Callahan earlier just kind of addressing some certain things, and we'll hear some sounders from him. But it sounds like they're off to a good start. With Traylon Burks is part of the conversation. Maybe more specifically, him playing special teams seems to be something that we're starting to dialogue about more. What did you take away from maybe the first couple of things that you heard from Brian and Will?
Well, I didn't hear the earlier part. He was talking about Kansas City and a player maybe who was working out. I don't know if he meant Snead or whoever.
Yeah, he was talking about Legarius.
So he's not there. And he also then said Simmons. So I don't know if he was practicing or not, too. Did you hear that?
Yeah, he
too?
did say that Jeffrey and players like that, it was more of a short-term situation. It wasn't anything long-term that they were thinking. Maybe they're just,
that way people understand why they're not there.
They're not holding out because of any money situations or anything like that. There might have been some tweaks. There might have been some recovery that's going on that doesn't allow them to necessarily take these risks and getting them out there on the field sooner than they should be. But when he was talking about Traylon Burks, man, the thing that resonated with me the most, Blaine, was him talking about playing gunner. In other words, playing special teams. And him saying that anytime you're not the full-time starter, you have to play teams. So that's a humbling situation in itself for a guy that was drafted in the first round, right?
Yeah, a guy who's the fourth wide.
He was a fourth wide now. Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't see him moving ahead of anybody unless somebody
goes
gets
down.
Yeah. So, it's kind of interesting. I love to see him break down. It's always an issue for wide receivers when they play gunner. Now, to break down, once you get down there, I think that won't be an issue. That's just like getting off a release as a jam when going against a cornerback. But then when you get down there, you have to break down and make a tackle. So it's always interesting when I see wide receivers do that. We had some receivers that did that during my time, but now in this day and age, you really don't see wide receivers unless they are not even contributors on most teams at wide receiver. They're kind of the last guy. Since say that it can't be done, I'd probably be more interested in to see him if he's part of the return game and the kickoff return game, since he's big, strong, and fast. I'd love to see what he could actually do in that moment. I think Callahan, without saying names, it sounds like he's going to use multiple people depending who's available and who looks good. And, as the circumstances, continue to evolve and they kind of figure out what's the better fit. So that was interesting still hearing that. So, and then he talked about James Williams, the linebacker from the U, who was a safety who's converting. But, it's still we're in that honeymoon stage and everything's good. And, one thing that stood out, he's an offensive guy. There was no doubt about it.
Yeah.
He said there's no sacks. And he was joking, but he was serious, though. He was joking like, no, there's no sacks, but, we all know if it's a sack or not. So, that was always fun in practice just to hear it if a guy got a sack or not, especially from a defensive perspective. So that shows that they're already ripping and running and they're having fun. So I like it.
To let you know, Brian Callahan, before we got on with him, he did say that everybody is there at minicamp. It's just that the players that are rehabbing are inside, and that's the reason why he didn't say
so those guys are inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like how he's embracing the competition between offense and defense. You're right. Defense likes to say that they get a sack every dang season, every time the ball's snapped. And as an offensive coach, he's saying, not necessarily. We understand when you get there. But last year at this point in time, Jeffrey Simmons couldn't be kept out of the backfield. And that's all he kept saying was, they can't block me. They can't block me. And he was right. But hopefully this is an instance where we've got Lloyd Cushenberry in the building in the middle. Obviously, Peter Skoronski is going to get some help on that left side with J.C. Latham being the first pick this year. Some improved play from guys like Dylan Radins. You talked about that, Blaine, from what you saw over at practice. Him now working with Bill Callahan. The rising tide, right, brings up all ships. And that means even the linemen that sucked last year might be better this year because they've got better coaching. Not taking shots at the last regime, but this is Bill Callahan, for goodness sake. As a matter of fact, he's an award-receiving Bill Callahan. Didn't even hear when his own son was trying to give him the
what was the award he won?
It was some achievement award.
It's like a lifetime achievement.
Lifetime achievement award.
Cool,
Heck
man.
yeah! Look, are you kidding me? Lifetime achievement for a dude that coached me in my second Pro Bowl. Yeah. So I understand exactly the value that a guy like Bill Callahan brings. But I also, like you just mentioned, the different lineups that we're going to see in special teams. Maybe if Traylon Burks is on them, Colt Anderson, the special teams coach. He's going to be doing some different things there. He said it might look a little chaotic in the very beginning as they try and figure out, who's going to be playing what position. And, we talk about a two-back backfield between Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. Maybe one of those guys, if you're not starting that week, will be in the return game or something like that because you aren't, just like Brian said, a starter. So therefore, you need to play special teams. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and then, listening to Levis, the only thing that really stood out there in the brief time that we heard him was that he was doing had nothing to do with on field. It was all about he's doing a retreat when in this.
How about that, man?
With the skill guys and the receivers. Okay, he acted like it was in Tennessee, but I don't know if that was true or not.
Do offensive linemen or secondary players ever do a retreat? Like, did you guys ever go out and hang out?
So we all hang out, offensive linemen hang out, but just not in a coordinated effort like that. We might end up over playing cards at somebody's house, but it sounded like what Blaine was bringing up is that Will might be going off-site.
Yeah,
maybe Cancun
it was definitely
or something.
offsite. It was definitely offsite. I was like, where are y'all going? Like, I didn't know.
That's a bonding moment, though.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do that to get with your skill guys if you're trying to get somewhere and really fast as a quarterback to receiver in a new scheme, in a new system. That's not unheard of, but yeah, we always did something, but never was a lot. Like, what people don't realize is you're around guys in your position group really 9 hours a day, all day. I mean, so most guys want to get home with their families and move on and go different places. But then you want to come back together at some point in time. So, yeah, we didn't do a lot of that. But during the season, we did.
Well, the reason I ask is because when Tom Brady was going up against the Falcons, he did like a Facebook special show. It was like a 5-part documentary. They showed the retreat that he did with his wide receivers where they went up into like the mountains that just had this big open field.
I don't think McNair ever did a retreat with any of our receivers.
No, but I've seen quarterbacks like Joe was talking about.
I know, but I'm just saying during our time.
Steve didn't do that. See, I mean, put this way, I'm not a receiver, so I wouldn't have known if he did go out of town. He wouldn't call me and ask me to go. Right. And he didn't take his offensive lineman on a group, but he did take care of us. Steve bought us all kinds of things.
That's how every group is different, so they do it differently.
All kinds of
just
stuff.
like Eddie would do special stuff and maybe buy Rolexes for all the linemen and whatever it was. When he rushed for over 1,000 yards or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, every player has their own little.
It's different, though, when you're talking about the conclusion of a season where you're thanking the guys around you for all their hard work for the year and you're doing something to celebrate that year, whatever. But I think that when you're talking about what Will Levis is talking about doing in June or in July, rather, is just basically getting away. It's almost a retreat of sorts between he and the guys that he has to be on the same page with. And it allows them to kind of let their hair down and be something more than just football players. Now they're developing that chemistry, the cohesion that being on the same page needs to be established before they actually start taking the field. It's more than just the X's and O's. This is about getting to learn the Jimmys and Joes.
Absolutely agree with that because offense is a little bit different than defense. So you have to kind of read each other, read body language sometimes, and you got to ad-lib at times. Sometimes it's not drawn up just like it is on the board.
Right.
So, you got to get that kind of chemistry. So, yeah, a lot of offenses and quarterbacks do that now, so that's not uncommon, as I said earlier.
Yeah. Hey, we got to take a break. When we come back, though, we're going to ask you a question. Who do you think the most underappreciated Titan is as we start minicamp? That's Blaine Bishop. I'm Brad Hopkins. And as always, we're brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Stick around for more right here on The Zone.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop, and I'm excited to tell you about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, or as you may know them as TOA. And TOA has 29 locations, over 100 orthopedic physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. In addition to their orthopedic clinics and urgent care facilities, TOA offers physical therapy, hand therapy, and sports performance training for teams and individuals at their sports performance centers. And as a former professional athlete, I know how important access to expert orthopedic care is. And so whether you're an athlete, active adult, or just looking to get back to living your best life, you can visit TOA online at TOA.com. That's TOA.com. Or you can call them at 1-855-NEED-TOA. That's 1-855-NEED-TOA.
And we are back. That's Blaine Bishop. I am Brad Hopkins. We are brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. You were able to hear from Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, plus QB1. Will Levis took to the podium, too, on that second part, waxing poetically about where they are right now in the status. We thought that was pretty cool, how he and his skill position players are going to be getting away for maybe a week or so and just kind of working on them. I'm sure they're going to get some routes in, a little practice as they head into the month of July, where it starts to really kind of curtail towards the beginning of a season. But for the most part, he got out there and did just what you would expect a quarterback to do, sound confident in what he's doing. I like the way Brian Blaine was talking about him being coachable. How there are a lot of people that are pouring into him, whether it's Rob, whether it's Brian, whether it's Nick, and he's taking that type of instruction to at least improve from 1 year to the next. What about that first year to the second year? They were talking about that a little bit. How was that first year to second year jump for you?
Well, I want to talk about him being coachable because that's some of the things that came out in that article. Okay. And then when he was making mistakes and then he actually was correcting himself. But when he was talking about coachable in this point in time, what he was exactly referring to, he said he asked Will Levis to make some footwork adjustments. And he said he was very coachable and very open-minded to that. And I applaud him for that because that's a lot harder than people want to give credence to that. To make changes, especially he had somewhat success even in the National Football League in 1 year in 6 games. So that's not as easy as people. So you have to go work and then work at it and then where you're natural and you're not thinking about it, especially when you're talking about a physical part of your game and making your throws easier because your legs are an extension of your arm. It's not always just your arm talent that gets the ball there. Sometimes it's just your legs. So I really applaud Will Levis for that. Other than that, what else did you want to know about second year? Second year, guys, you usually make a jump, but you just don't know. Because do we view this as still his first year? And here's why I say that. New coach, new scheme. It's
especially
the quarterback.
Because regardless of it being with a new system or scheme, he still understands more of the minutia of playing quarterback because he has 1 year of experience versus having no years of experience.
Well, 6 games.
Yeah. Well, still.
6 games. He has experience, no doubt about it. But here's why I say that in that now he may not, I'm hoping he does, but he may not, and the team may not start off as fast. And I think they got to start off fast because just like you just said, the minutia, those things don't happen because you can drop all these plays on the board, but you got to understand how to play off one another when things don't go as planned on the board and the pieces start moving. And so those things come with over time and experience in a game where you know the movements of your receiver and you know what he's trying to do and then you throw it somewhere else. I mean, those are the little things you can only go through until you're in the actual game. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully he picks it up sooner or later, and that's why they're going on a retreat.
Yeah, but there's one thing that Brian did say. He said that second-year guys are more comfortable playing the game going into their second year because I almost liken it into going into a dark closet. You know what I'm saying? In the very beginning, your very first year, you walk into a dark closet. You don't know what's in there. You don't know what's going on. You don't know anything because you can't see much of anything. And then as the experience starts to come to you, the season wanes, you start to see a little sliver of light that either comes from under the door or maybe the door is opening, and you can start to see more of what's in that closet. So going into that second year, even though this year's system is different, it does add more to the learning. You still have relative familiarity. So I think that 1 year to the next, like for me, I started as a rookie, okay? That second year starting as a second year guy was a lot better for me because I wasn't near as anxious. I understood a little bit about what was going on, what was required of me, what I needed to do to improve, and also what to expect from guys coming up against me. And I think that that's what he talked about. But it is great to see most of the guys, if not all the guys, at least in the building. They might not be on the practice field, but some of them are recovering from injuries, but they're still around. I like how you mentioned Sadiq Charles, his experience and power, how that's going to pay big dividends. Them making some of those acquisitions in the offseason that would bolster a much-needed position like the offensive line. So I like listening to him talk today about where they were going into this his first minicamp.
I mean, all of it is positive until you have conflict and when things happen in a game, do you know how people really respond? But all these are really good things. Here's what I was referencing is when you're playing in a scheme, whether it's your first year or your second year, you're going to make strides regardless because you now have experience and you have that confidence and you know what to expect and you know what you need to do to be successful. But what happens when you go into a different scheme, things don't come as natural to you. You're robotic early on because you're trying to make sure you're doing your responsibilities first. And then when you start saying, this feels like, I can do this off of this, and you start playing the game within the game, then that's when it becomes something special. And that's what I'm talking about when you go into your second year, whether it's your first year or second year, is offensively and defensively, when you're knowing a scheme. I remember when I'm in year 10, I'm in Philly. I'm up there reminding myself, this defense is this what we used to call in Tennessee, and that's what it is. Even going into the first game. So I'm still being robotic in my thought process, not actually just winging it and going, and now I can play freely. So that's what I'm talking about. And once you get to that level in a scheme, doesn't matter what year you are, then your talents then take you to the next level. So that's what I'm hoping we see, because we all know Will Levis has a lot of arm talent. There is no doubt about it.
For both of you guys, like learning the new playbook, and we've heard Callahan talk about the learning it and we're installing it, everything. But for both of you, like you were talking about in Philly, going and looking at a new playbook, how long did it take you to really start to feel, okay, this is getting good? Because the install is almost done, but how long does it take for you guys to actually start getting it both on defensive and offensive side?
Okay, so Blaine just touched on a little bit.
Yeah.
He said in year 10, he had to change over what they were calling a certain thing, right? Mm-hmm. But he knew what the scheme was. Mm-hmm. So for veterans, Hunk, they understand the nuances about the position and what to do, because you're not going to reinvent the football. Right. But for younger guys, you might not even know what it's called. You might be drinking out of a fire hose versus drinking out of a water fountain, where there's still some nourishing that needs to be had. But how you take on that information, how you basically learn it and put it to use, that changes from how long you've been playing in the game. If you're a first-year starter, second-year starter like me and Blaine were, it might seem a little more clunky because you're still learning. But if you're a guy that, like he said, was in year 10, or like me, even when I was going into year 13, I'm like sitting there thinking, what can I learn from the guys around me to make me that much better? You're still learning, but it's not like I was crazy or scared about it. Why? Because I've been playing for as long as I have been. Mm-hmm. There are some changes that need to come about whenever you got new coaching and new systems that come in. But if you've been playing the game doesn't deviate too much from what it actually is. Not that much.
Yeah. I think it's based off of individual players. I would assume most players, when you're in year 10, I'm using that example because that's when I changed teams. I thought I knew everything about the playbook going into game one. But until I was out there in the moment making adjustments, said, Blaine, you're going to make all the calls, you're going to make all the adjustments, everything. I'm like, well, dang, I just got here. Like, why can't we got an experienced group? No, we want you to make all the calls. So then it took me to a whole nother level where I had to feel comfortable enough not only to know my job, but I'm going into a new scheme and actually tell everybody out there what to do. So it just depends on your comfort level, how much you're going to dive into it, and then you can play free. And I bring that up always because you play differently when you understand where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, and especially being a safety, and what other guys are doing. That way you can cheat the code. That's the cheat code, where you can then take risk at certain points in times within the scheme, being a safety, understanding where everybody's at, even the D lineman. So I just think it is a process, and it's not as easy as people want to give credence to, because you can know what you're supposed to do on the board and you know where you're supposed to be, but can you then play freely and then go make plays? Yeah, that's a little bit different.
Lots of sound coming from 460 Great Circle Road. Brian Callahan and Will Levis took to the podium, and we've got some sounders that we're going to play on the other side when we come back. That's Blaine Bishop. I am Brad Hopkins. We are brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Stick around for much more right here on The Zone.
Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4 p.m. and it's not. People are really tired of that stuff. So if you had this with the unreliable vehicle repair shops, come on over to Eurofix. Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable, and Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's really ready, so you don't have to stand around waiting all freaking day. And Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer and without the dealer pricing. And that's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of the dealership's overhead. And that's a lot of money. And why would you want to pay for that? Well, at Eurofix, reliable also means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And make sure you call ahead as loaner cars are very popular. And if you're tired of the unreliable repair shops, come on over to the reliable, and that will be Eurofix, family owned for 24 years. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. But always tell them Blaine sent you.
Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Joe Honk. As Titans started mini camp today, it is day 1 of 3. Brian Callahan as well as Will Levis met with the media just a little while ago. And as you could imagine, Treylon Burks was a topic of conversation and his role and what he could be doing on special teams. But will Treylon Burks need to focus on that as we move through summer and into training camp?
Absolutely. He's going to have to contribute, You know, you only get so many hats on game day, and if he's one of those guys on game day, we're going to have to find a place for him because those special teams guys like him should be great special teams players on top of it, just because of his size and speed. And so the gunner thing is something I think he's very capable of doing. There might be some more roles for him in the other phases as well. But yeah, anytime you're not the full-time starter, you're going to have to contribute somewhere on game day. And I think Trey's attitude and approach to special teams has been fantastic. And so I'm excited to see what he could do for him. I think he's an asset on special teams.
For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Vols, the flagship station for your Tennessee Titans. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2. That's Blaine Bishop. I am Brad Hopkins. We are brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. You heard in the first hour of the program Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, and you heard from QB1 Will Levis at the podium as the mini camps are taking place. And, of course, Blaine and I, we waxed poetically in that last segment about our thoughts about what we heard.
Do they have defense?
What do you mean, do they have defense?
Do they have defense?
No, they don't. It's an offensive coach, so we don't have no defense this year. Is that what you're trying to imply?
Yeah, I just thought about that. Like, there was no defensive player.
Did they even ask a defensive question?
Well,
outside of what's the
no,
players
you
that
asked
are
a
injured
defensive
talking
question
about?
to.
Yeah, but you only had the head coach and one player who was an offensive player at the podium.
Which was the quarterback.
And you want to hear from the quarterback more than anybody else, right? Especially a second-year guy.
Of course.
But
Did you want to hear from a defensive perspective? I think you want to give every viewpoint.
It's not like we haven't heard defensive players take to the podium.
But it's not like we heard the quarterback.
Oh, they talked about
true.
Gibby and how he's doing with the green dot.
How about that? How about that transition from safety to backer?
Always shortchanging the defense. There's always shortchanging, man.
And you sound like what Brian was talking about, how the defense always gets sacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Every single play.
It was a sack. You can tell it was a sack every time. Every time. He needs to lean into the defense so they won't start feeling like they ain't making plays. He knows his offense is making plays.
Yeah.
So you want to do the opposite. If you're on one side of the ball and you're a head coach, you kind of want to lean to the other side so you don't show favoritism. And the reason why I get that note from yours truly, Coach Fisher. He was a defensive-minded coach, and he was always on the offensive side of the ball. B. Hop can attest to that too, by the way.
Yeah, he did. He was always kind of talking with us.
See, that's why you don't make this divide unbeknown to you as a coach. That shows how much awareness Coach Fisher had about how that was going to be like that. And so, to me, that's why you lean into the other side.
So
that's
how much of that goes into, like, guys like Snead that are still rehabbing to get back, Sweat is rehabbing to come back? Like, how much does that go into being able to analyze the offense as well to look at the defense?
I don't know, because usually when you're putting in new schemes, defense, B-Hop may feel a little bit different. I feel like the defense is always going to be ahead, especially you have an attacking style defense. It's easier to pick up those schemes than the offense because their offense is built on timing and rhythm. Even with the offensive linemen, you got to hit things at certain points in time. So it takes a little bit longer when you're starting in a new scheme for them to be on point. So I always feel like the defense always has an advantage, even going into preseason of, already being ahead of the offense.
Well, we were a little behind on the press conference because we were not up yet. And apparently RTB from the F&M Bank chat says that he did open the press conference talking about defense.
Oh, okay.
So we just didn't hear that part.
Right.
We just didn't hear
I didn't say he wasn't talking about defense.
You asked the question.
No, I asked, was it a defensive player?
And that was still a question you asked.
Right.
And
Well,
we just basically
I didn't say
said
if it was if he talked about defense. I said, was it a defensive player who talked on the podium? There was no defensive player that talked.
Yeah, there was only one player. So you're either going to be from one side of the ball or the other.
Right.
And
Well,
I think
you usually have three people.
Well, in this instance, we only had one guy, and that one guy was Will Levis. And he spoke very eloquently about, transitioning, about his going into his second year. He sounds a little more confident. He talked about his sense of motivation coming from within, not necessarily listening to what's going on outside, that white noise that we talked about. How hard do you think that is for a young player, Blaine, to compartmentalize those things that he's supposed to do versus what everybody else thinks he's supposed to do?
I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
I asked you the question.
What are your thoughts? I mean, I feel like it's easy. Like, you won't be successful playing sports if you don't do that. That's just impossible because people are going to say what they want to say. It's up to you internally to be, I've said this before, self-motivated and block out all the noise because then that puts you in a focus level that it cannot be penetrated. because people are going to say what they say, and you're going to have a bad game or bad throw or missed tackle, drop pass. I mean, those things are going to happen, and people are going to say what they want to say. So if you want to listen to all the pundits and everybody talking, then I would just turn off social media. I can't even listen to it. I got to be focused on what I need to do to be better, and only I know what I can do as a player, and I'm going to be the best version of me, and that's all that matters.
I think that becomes easier the longer that you play, because as a first-year guy, you're still questioning yourself. You're still questioning a lot about where you're doing, where you're supposed to be, how long you're supposed to do it, all these things. I didn't have confidence that I had in my second year going into my I had confidence going into my second year way more than I had going into my first year.
Well, we didn't have access to social media
I understood
either.
exactly what I was supposed to do going into my second year. I wasn't thinking as much in my first year, which is what I kind of think he was trying to address. And it's hard. It's hard nowadays as a young player with rabbit ears, hearing every single thing that goes on around you, and then just kind of being able to have thick skin and put that off. Some guys are sensitive, and they hear every single thing that goes on around them.
If you play quarterback, you better get ready, because it's going to destroy you. It'll eat you alive.
And I guarantee you that probably does affect the altitude of some of these players, because they just can't put behind them in the rear view the bad, the negative things that are being said about them.
And then they will then fail. They will then fail.
Or they'll adjust.
Or they eventually have to. They have no choice. That's why I said they have no choice but to do it.
Yeah.
You have no choice.
So I think getting to his check downs faster, that was something that he mentioned, being able to kind of decipher and go through your progressions, maybe taking that extra hitch, like he talked about, that second hitch, and being confident to know that you can get the ball where it's supposed to be. So I think listening to him talk, it did sound like Brian was talking about, he has a little bit more of a grasp on what his responsibilities are. The adjustment now comes to what? Him being in a different system than what we saw last year. His first year, there are going to be a lot of things different this year than he did last year, and it's up to Brian to bring that out of him. Like you were talking about Brian adjusting his mechanics, the footwork, bringing the legs with the arm. I also heard in his first press conference when Brian Callahan was his head coach, him saying that Callie, I love the way they call him that, Callie also takes in consideration some of the things that he, at doing the mechanics, might want to think about. Like, maybe this extra step isn't quite necessary. And it sounds like Brian is at least the kind of guy to broach that conversation and seeing how it works. If it don't, then they won't do it again. But if it does work, it's okay for him to implement that into his style and let that be more about who he is. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I think if you listen to anything about Callie, this is the difference between him and the previous coaching staff, is that he is flexible. It's not his way or the highway. Hey, let's try something out.
Right.
And let's see if it works. If it doesn't, hey, man, you can go back to what you were doing. But I just think you make this small adjustment, and it's not like it's easy, but he makes adjustment, and next thing you know, I love it. So at least he was coachable. I think that was the other part of it, and open to dialogue, let alone change, and see if it actually will work. Those are all, teachable moments. You got to, get to understand who Will Levis is really as a coach. And, hey, man, he's still a young, talented player that's still growing. So we've yet to see what this Will Levis can be. And we won't know probably until the end of the season.
Yeah. You're right. It's going to be probably a work in progress, but as they continue to do it, and hopefully they'll get off to a faster start than normal. Just the fact that Will is mature enough to understand that he needs to do some things that really kind of bind that group together.
And typical quarterbacks are ahead of most players because they had to be in the spotlight their entire careers, even in college, let alone they were probably superstars in high school. So I think that adjustment to listen to noise, you have to train yourself to be that way, and quarterbacks have to, because you are in the spotlight and you always have the ball in your hand. So if you aren't already going down that road in particular, I think you're going to be in a tough spot, and you need to find where you got to close up the ears and all social media, which we didn't have because it's all over the place. And, and you're going to be human and you're going to see certain things, but you got to know that, hey, man, let it drive you instead of drive you crazy.
Yeah, but that's what Will talked about, though. He said, I'm not going to let that stuff drive me. I'm going to let my internal drive me. I'm going to kind of
if you're not self-motivated as a professional athlete, I don't know how you got where you're at.
Yeah, well,
to be honest,
sometimes they take guidance from people that are around them, like me. I wasn't self-motivated per se, but I did listen to Mike Munchak.
That is fascinating. You weren't?
I wasn't.
And you were 13 years
13 years in. You know how I survived 13 years?
How's that?
With the help of the guys around me.
Oh, my.
I didn't have necessarily the confidence to kind of blot out everything that I didn't agree with necessarily. But when I asked questions of veterans around me and they gave me the right instruction, then I felt good about what I was doing.
But you had
I thought
to be
I had more
open
of a
to
plan.
listening, though, didn't you?
And that's what Will is. Will's listening to the coaches. Will's listening to the relationships that he has with certain guys. You don't think that DeAndre Hopkins taught him a lot?
But did you listen? But did you listen in the beginning?
Listen to what?
The veteran players that were talking to you.
I just said that. I listened to Bruce Matthews and Mike Munchak.
As time went on, but I'm talking about your rookie year. Did you listen to him your rookie year?
Absolutely.
No, you did?
Absolutely. I had a 12-year, 9 Pro Bowl, all-pro guy and a Hall of Famer and Mike Munchak. Matter of fact, that relationship transcended when he was playing. He then went into his positional head coach and then became my position coach some years after that. But I've been listening to Munch since day one. And then, of course, being able to play alongside of Bruce Matthews for 10 years, I'm falling out of a boat and hitting water regardless. You know what I'm saying?
You got to play next to him for 10 years? I thought he played center.
Years.
How long did he play center?
This is the first year. Then they brought in Mark Stepnoski. Remember Mark Stepnoski from the Cowboys?
He was 97.
Yeah, he came in later on, and they then they brought in Kevin Long, and of course there's some other guys. But the point was, those veterans that had way more experience than I did, they made it more of a calming situation for me than I ever could have done on my own, being self-motivated. One thing I didn't have that. I know you didn't. One thing I did find interesting, though, that Brian said at the podium was that you don't have to be a high-end athlete to be a linebacker. He said that basically understanding concepts, being in the right place, that was more of along the lines of a successful linebacker in his eyes. What do you think? I mean, I'm not like you're asking you to disagree with him, but it does sound kind of unique to hear that you don't have to necessarily be some 4'4", 6'4", 250-pound monster to play linebacker.
You're looking at him. You don't have to be some 6'2", run a 4'4", and be a great safety in the National Football League. 6 feet. I didn't hit any of those points, so he's absolutely right. Yeah, it's your football IQ, and it's what's in between your ears. You got to have enough ability.
Yeah,
can't be just anybody. But if you have enough ability, your brains as smart players, as we've seen time and time again. And we can use a guy that went in the first round for the Titans. Who was it? The linebacker that didn't work out and went first round. Evans.
Rashad Evans.
Rashad Evans. Yeah, right. Yeah. He had all the talent in this world. Why didn't he work out? He wasn't even better than David Long. Because it was what was in between the ears, reading, reacting, reading that triangle. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Who do you
Certain
think
positions you do though.
Yeah.
It's just the athletic plane. You got to be great. Left tackle. You got to be great. Cornerback. There's certain positions you have to have a lot of athleticism to play your spot.
Who do you think the most underappreciated Titan is? As we start minicamp, Bradford S. on the F&M Bank chat says that it's Amani Corvell Hooker. Didn't even know his middle name. We'll ask Coach Mack, the Mack Attack. Coach McGinnis is up next right here on 104.5 The Zone. That's Blaine Bishop. I'm Brad Hopkins, and we are brought to you by All Four Seasons Garage Doors.
This summer, NASCAR is back at Nashville Superspeedway, June 28th through the 30th for Ally 400 race weekend. That's right, guitars and fast cars right here in Music City. From the campgrounds to the track, you won't want to miss that excitement. And this is the 4th year that Ally has been the entitlement sponsor of the Ally 400. The first Ally 400 in 2021 was the first NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville Superspeedway since 1984, so be there this year and be part of history in the making. In the previous Ally 400s, there have been 3 different winners, so come see who will take the checkered flag this year. And in true Music City fashion, the Ally 400 will have a pre-race concert with a soon-to-be-determined artists. So more details to come. So get your tickets now to watch your favorite drivers to take on the 1.33 miles of concrete chaos. So visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com. That's NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to lock in your spot at the Rackley Roofing 200, the Tennessee Lottery 250, and the Ally 400 right now today.
And we are back.
Whoa.
And it is time for the Mac Attack.
Yeah, that's right.
That's Blaine Bishop. I'm Brad Hopkins, and we are now joined by our former coach and the coach of the station, Dave McGinnis. Coach, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, guys. Doing really good. You know how fortunate I am to have you guys call me your former coach. If I'd have had players like that my whole career, I'd probably still be coaching.
You know what, Dave? I'm going to tell you this right now. I didn't really vibe with too many defensive coaches because obviously I'm a left tackle, right? But I loved me some Coach McGinnis. You always had words of wisdom and also words of encouragement for young guys like myself. Thank you, Coach.
Well, let me tell you something. I've got an affinity for good players, and so both of you guys fit right into that category.
Yeah, that's my guy. Hey, listen, we teased a question that we were going to have for you, and this is how we'll start the discussion. Who do you think, Coach, is the most underappreciated Titan? And that's kind of a loose word, underappreciated Titan as we start minicamp. Who would that guy be, in your opinion?
You know what? To me, underappreciated. I still really believe for what he has done in a couple of seasons when you didn't have a whole lot of help, and especially last year, is D-Hop. I think when you realize what D-Hop did for this club and the stability that he brought to it, and at least when he was out there as a fan, when you're watching him play, you had hope. And I think to me, we've kind of underestimated, just because we didn't have a winning record. We underestimated really what his contribution was. And when you're around him, guys, it's not only on the field, but it's in that building too. And it's just the presence that he brings. And he's still doing the same thing. They had a big group of fans for the Titans house up there at practice today. And D-Hop after practice, now they had to go inside, clearly because of the rain, but he did not leave that bubble until he had signed or taken pictures with everybody, both adults and children that were there at that event. That says something.
I'm sorry. Are Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd having the same type of relationship, or at least they're trying to make the same kind of connection with Will Levis that DeAndre made in his first year, you think?
Well, I think it's a little early yet to tell that. I know this. Yeah. They're getting plenty of time. But, I mean, the thing to me that with those three together now, I mean, that's a big get for Will Levis.
Yeah.
But just the fact that what D-Hop was able to do last year in a pretty rough environment for the team, because you weren't winning a lot of games, he stayed above the fray and really taught the young guys that were paying attention what it is to be a pro.
He is Coach McGinnis joining us here on the show.
Well, Coach, we get this question a lot from the fans, and that is, I want you to explain what's the difference between, OTAs and minicamp, just from a fan perspective.
Well, you got everybody's there. Now, some guys still aren't participating because they're going through rehab, but everybody is there. And now what you're able to do, and I'm just going back to the times when I was coaching and we were in this same, three-tier system as far as the off-season, you're able to do a little bit more team stuff. They went indoors today, guys, and you know what? Those offensive linemen, you'll like this, B-Hop. I'm sure they thought, well, they can't bring all that equipment in for Callahan indoors. So we don't have to worry about. Brought every piece of equipment inside.
The players was like, oh, we got out of... No.
Every piece of it, and they're still just grinding on that thing. But what you can do now, as far as in my observations have been, and then what I did when I was coaching, you can have a little bit more team stuff now, because you've already got your initial install in, so you can have a little bit more team stuff. But still, there's no pads. There's no hitting. You're still in that phase as to where you're trying to avoid the contact. But I think just having everybody there for once, I'll tell you one thing, when they were out there doing their pre-practice activation and, the thing that they do now, we used to call it stretch. They're not stretching much anymore. It's all that activation stuff they're doing. The field is a lot more full than it is the other times.
Well, with Coach Mack giving us the Mac Attack, I know you kind of each day kind of watch different position groups. What group were you kind of paying attention to the most today, and actually kind of give us an update on what you actually saw?
Well, once they got into team, I started watching. I started watching the defense. with the team stuff today. Charles Davis is in here, for the 3 days, just trying to get to learn the team. So I'm with him. And so I was watching the defense as a whole, the linebacker group and individual, but the team defense as a whole, I was watching to see what they were working on. And here's another thing towards your question that I think was very relevant, that you asked about what's the difference. Today in the team session, Denard Wilson was bringing a lot of his pressures, a lot of his bogey, a lot of his disguised pressures, a lot of, working on those types of things. And the offensive line was working on their protections, both what was called and then what was called pre-snap and then what was recognized and adjusted to post-snap. That's a big difference because they haven't done that quite as much. Today it was quite a bit of the team.
Talk a little bit behind the scenes on that same note, what the preparation is for the actual coaches when they come up with the cards and they know what they're going to be, they know what the defense is going to do and the offense knows what the offense is going to do as far as, okay, this is blitz period a little bit, not telling the players, and then how are you preparing for that as coaches, then relaying it down the line to the actual players?
Yeah, great question. When you start, when you put it together, you let your players know, of course, the way the install is, in team, we're going to have some of these pressures, but you don't tell them clearly what pressure is coming.
Right.
Okay. And so neither side knows that, but they do know that it's going to be either the 5-down look and bring it 4, a 4-down look. So you've gone over the basics of that with both of those groups, but then once you do it, it's extemporaneous as you can do it so that you can get kind of a true read and see, again, not only how successful it's going to be, but you want to see, too, how everybody reacts, both on the offensive and the defensive side of it. So what I would do is if Hop's the offensive line coach and you're the defensive coordinator, you'd go in there and say today, look, I'm gonna work some 5-down bogey pressures today from either side, coming either inside or outside. Are you good with all of that? And then you put it down in distance with it, and then Hop would say yes. And so then you'd go through that with your guys in the meetings, and then you put it out there on the field and see how it works out.
There you have it. Coach Mack, giving us a Mack tape. You still there, Coach?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, make sure. Okay, I thought I lost you.
Hey, Coach, along those same lines, we know that veteran teams, they know how to get the most out of the week. They work well together, basically, in team situations. Like you just mentioned, it was more of a coordinated effort between the staff and what they're going to work on during that day. How supportive are they of each other on each side of the ball, you think, Coach?
Well, it's a good staff. I mean, look, I've worked with a lot of these guys. I had a hand in hiring some of them at different places. I know what they are. And look, it's not the fact that, you're trying to, one's not trying to get something over on the other. You're trying to get beneficial work for both sides. And so there has to be and the players pick that up too. Now it's competitive, but it doesn't have to be cutthroat because it does good to do something that is beneficial for one side, but is detrimental to the other. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally.
And you guys have both been places where sometimes it's not like that. Now when you get deeper into these practice sessions and you start getting into training camp and then you start getting into before the season starts, then you will have some come together call-it periods. And call-it periods are where everything just goes off and down in distance. The head coach will set the ball. And then when you've got the pads on, then everything amps up a little bit. But now they are still in the learning and teaching phase. And when you're able to work together like that, because you guys know it's different than from when you were playing, where you could put on pads twice a day, every day. You could put them on all during the season. You've got a limited number of time that you can have pads on even during the regular season. So you have to learn how to practice against one another without pads on.
Continue that just a little bit further, Coach. We heard Brian Callahan mention that physicality comes later. We're probably talking about the months of July and August when they do, like you just mentioned, start putting the helmets on. Technique and fundamentals, hands and eyes and things of that nature are where we are right now. How much of what these players you would hope them to evolve into can you ascertain at this point before it starts getting physical?
Well, the main thing you look for, first of all, you look for who has retention on what you're teaching, and then you look daily on incremental improvements in each position group on the techniques that you're working on. That's what you're looking for right now, is incremental improvements on the technique. In other words, if you're having to reteach somebody the same technique and the same drill every day, that's an issue. that's an issue, because the first thing you want retention, but the other thing that you don't want, and especially not only in individual guys, but when you go into the team sessions that they're in, you don't want repeat offenders, because you guys know as well as I do, everything is scrutinized and everything is gone over. And so the corrections have been made. So what you're looking for is retention, and then you're looking to eliminate somebody. And if you have someone that's a repeat offender continuously, well, then pretty soon you're going to move off from that individual, because if they're repeat offenders in this type of thing, then you've got a real problem when it starts getting really hot.
Okay, so one other thing that Coach Callahan mentioned was doing things hard during the week, Coach Mack. It made things easier on the weekend. Now, I'm not going to ask you if this is an easy or hard camp, but from what you've been able to, determine up to this point, how does Brian Callahan run a mini camp? Is it a more difficult situation, a little more physically grueling, or is it just some more of a learning lesson, kind of a walkthrough type situation? What would you say the pace is?
No, it's not walkthrough, and I promise you this, Hoppy, if you ask those offensive linemen if 45 minutes of individual with Bill Callahan's easy, no. And so anyway, it's instructional, but it's at speed. It's instructional, but it's at speed. But what you've got to learn to be able to do is as you increase the tempo of it. And as I said, there's no pads on right now. Now you can have helmets on, but still you've got to protect one another. But as far as the intensity of what's going on with the instruction that they're getting, it's pretty high up there.
He's Coach Dave McGinnis, and he stops by every single week, and he's also brought to you by Two Rivers Ford.
Well, Coach, Callahan, head coach, made some comments about Burks, and that's kind of the big conversation, acting as though some people over here it's really interesting. But he only talked about, hey, he's got to be, working on special teams. So everybody's now saying, oh, if he doesn't participate on special team, he's not going to make the team. That is not what he was actually saying, Coach. So kind of, pump the brakes a little bit on that and kind of talk about, hey, if you're not a starter, that means you're going to participate in other ways until you're out on the field in a rotational moment as a player in Burks' case, until you get your actual shot, when the season gets to going.
You know what? I'm really glad. I'm glad both of you guys are on the air, because you guys have done it. So that just being the worst thing you want to do, especially when you're going through sound bites or B-rolls, which is just a sound bite of what's going on. You guys understand what the real underlying message is. So no, look, he's going to have a place on this football team. But right now, and this should be any of his success is up to him. It's completely up to him. It's completely up to him right now. And first of all, at this point, after one day of a mini camp, your head coach is not going to come out and say, well, this guy's not doing anything, so we're not worried about having him on the team. That's not what it is. I'm just so glad you guys are on the air, because you've got credibility in the fact that you've done it and you know how it really works.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're with Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack. Kind of think us through what you're thinking in your former days as a head coach with a young quarterback like Will Levis going into his second year, but with a new scheme. What would be your expectation on the development and learning process of that whole scheme, and then naturally expectations?
Yeah, well, I would expect him to be dialed in on this offense. And every day, I would be expecting him every day to be dialed into it, and I would be expecting him to be fully immersed in it. Because you're right. I mean, look, last year he's in a completely different offense, but he's got a chance now, even technique-wise, to reset the things that he's doing. But his grasp of the thing, and the reality of this league is everybody's time frame has shortened with this league. You guys know it, I know it. And so my expectations for him as now the starting quarterback for this team is to be spot on with what he's doing, and also learn from his mistakes in practice, but be a guy that shows that development during practice, that you have great confidence in, that he not only understands conceptually what's going on, but then he can make it work out there on the field, regardless of what tempo you're going at. That to me is, and I think you're right. I think the development of Will Levis and the development of this offensive line are two key cogs to this football team right now in this reset mode that they're in.
And Coach, I guess lastly here, Coach Callahan on the O-line as far as the head coach or offensive line coach is probably, you could give him the word GOAT as position coaches in the National Football League, right? Or do you?
No, absolutely.
Okay. Give me one GOAT at another position group on offense and defense in the entire National Football League who's well respected across the league. Only you could answer that question off a cuff like that.
Well, I think first of all, we've got another one here for linebackers is Frank Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Bush is a 30-plus year coach, and especially at the linebacker position. I mean that's a guy that right there. And then the running backs, there's a guy that I've worked with at Indiana State that has been with the Shanahans ever since the Sycamores, the Terra 1, Terra 2, Terra Hut. Is that
oh man, hey man, that's where my mom and my family's from, man. Watch out, man. Terre Haute, man. Watch out now.
ever since I coached with him there, he's become the GOAT of running back coaches. A guy named Bobby Turner. Yeah, and Bobby Turner is the guy that has evaluated and trained up every back that has had success in the Shanahan system, starting with Mike Shanahan, now going on with Kyle there at San Francisco.
There you have it, Coach Mack. Give us the Mack attack.
We are bringing our seat backs to their upright and stowed position. But before we actually do that, Coach, there's a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on. You are our linebackers coach, of course, so you would probably be the most eloquent person to ask this of James Williams, who was a safety at Miami, but now is playing linebacker. 6'4", 230 pounds. That seems like a massive safety, almost like a Steve Atwater type dude. How hard is it to transition from safety to linebacker?
Well, it's a transition. It really is. In fact, I asked Bush about it. He said the kid's bright. He absorbs it. He gets it. Now it's just a matter of doing it. And plus, it's a matter of the thing about linebackers. And again, I don't want to get too technical here, but I will, because linebackers are different than any other position. Because first of all, when you're down at that second level, you not only have to know what's going on in front of you, you have to know what's going on behind you. And so that's extremely important. So the first thing that he's got to learn before he ever learns, how to take on, how to shock and shed, all of that stuff. And I always taught my linebackers, it's eyes before feet. He's got to learn what to look at. He's got to learn what to look at and not just be running, out like a dog hitting a screen door as soon as it opens and just chasing everything. You got to get eyes before feet. And that was the thing that I always taught my young linebackers. Look, how do you know where you're going unless you know what you're looking at? And so that's the stage he's in right now. But he's a physical talent.
Dog in the screen door. That's just hilarious. And actually, on a more somber note, Coach, I remember this dude throwing up 750 pounds on the bench press. And I thought, are you kidding me? He came in a year after Blaine and I did. Now, if you don't know who I'm talking about, that's Larry Allen, who unfortunately passed away while on vacation. You were coaching in the league at the time that he was actually running roughshod over defenses and whatnot. Give us your thoughts about Larry Allen passing away.
Formidable. I mean, I coached some great linebackers. Eric, when the Cardinals, we were still in the NFC East then when I was at the Cardinals. But Seth Joyner, Jameer Miller, Eric Hill from LSU. Larry Allen at guard, they would all say, that dude, it's like hitting something that's made out of not flesh and bone, but it's made out of brick. The guy was formidable. He was a keystone for what they did. And plus the way they were in that I formation with Norv Turner then, with Moose at the fullback and how many times they ran that power O or they'd run that lead. Larry Allen was one of the real true Goliaths of offensive linemen, especially at that guard. Great player. And you knew that when you got ready to play the Cowboys with him, it was a double chin strap. Be sure the air is all in your helmet because that dude was formidable.
Yep, he was the first one you wanted to see off the bus. Coach, you have been fantastic as always. We'll catch up to you next week.
Guys, appreciate you a lot. See you guys.
Thanks, Coach.
That's Coach Dave McGinnis, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. You can hear him all over this station because every single one of us loves to get a piece of the coach and have him break it down for us. Blaine and I will come back and we'll give our thoughts about the passing of Larry Allen, and we'll wrap up the show next, right here on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop. I want to know if you have heard about peptides. Peptides are shaking up the fitness world. They are naturally occurring aminos in your body. And as we age, they start to decline. And at some point, they may need to be supplemented. And this is why our workouts can stop being productive at the gym. And maybe you feel like you've hit a wall, or perhaps you feel tired all of the freaking time. You may be struggling to stay awake in the evenings and got to get that nap in, right? So if you've had that thought, this is just a normal part of aging. It doesn't have to be that way. Peptides are proven to increase muscle and performance, burn fat, help with recovery between workouts, and more. Peptides can even help with motivation and mental clarity. These are safe, natural occurring aminos, not pharmaceuticals, a natural and holistic way to get your body back to peak performance. Plus, Edge Peptides Therapy has the most comprehensive blood panel around. So when you go to Edge, you will know exactly what is going on inside your body and what it needs to get back to peak performance. And that's what I did. So feel better from the inside out. So go to edgepeptide.com or call 615-724-1878. 615-724-1878. Porzingis.
Final segment of the program. That was our very own coach, Dave McGinnis, and he's always brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, and he always brings the funk. Love it. You know what I don't like, Blaine? I don't like this gap that we have between action. We won't get to see the Vols take the field for the Super Regional for a couple more days. We won't get to see the finals in the NBA start till what? Tomorrow.
So you still know what I said
Thursday.
for my ding dong?
What's that?
I said
that's right.
The gap in between before the
terrible.
NBA finals, man. That's how they gonna wait till Thursday, man. They can't get ready, man. They played the teams before, man. Just fly wherever you got to go. Let's go.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Speaking of the ding dongs, remember yesterday we gave the two Sounds tickets that 3HL will be at on Friday to a guy that talked about. He talked about the guy that got the ticket and was doing virtual court.
Corey Harris.
Yeah, Corey Harris.
Corey Harris.
Come to find out, my man's license wasn't suspended.
What happened?
So he spent 2 days in jail after turning himself in. But what happened was in 2010, he had his license revoked, suspended because of palimony. He wasn't making his payments. So he got his license back, but there was a clerical issue and they didn't necessarily redo it through the state. So he was taking his wife to the doctor, which is when he was at court. And he said he didn't care about his license being suspended because he needed to get his wife to the doctor or whatever else. And that's when he was saw by the judge driving the car. But then it was found out that his license actually hadn't been reinstated, which was the deal. So he was kind of vindicated.
So that was intriguing to you. You would have found out all that information?
Sure did, because it came through in another story talking about, because everybody was making fun of that guy.
I didn't know the last part about it, because just like a lot of stories, everybody just talked about him.
Everybody just telling old craziness.
He was still dumb for doing the Zoom call while he was driving.
Was he, though? He said his wife was in trouble, man. He was taking his wife to the doctor. He said, I didn't give a dang about all of that. He said, I got to get my honey to the doctor.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Make her hold the phone. Make her hold the phone.
But she wasn't at court.
I know you're in pain right now, but can you hold the phone?
I'm with you.
Not do it directly in front of you where it looks like you're paying attention to that, not driving.
Yeah, right. Hey, and we did leave our last segment on a little bit of a somber note because we got Coach McGinnis' thoughts on Larry Allen. Just for me, it's very eye-opening when someone that is our age passes away prematurely. And especially given the fact, Blaine, that we don't have really many answers as to what was his demise. You know what I mean? Like, we want to know from me and you standpoint, I'll be 54 in September. I think you'll be 54 this year also. We want to try and avoid those pitfalls, right? Those potholes that are in the road. So finding out what happened to him sooner than later is going to be beneficial. But, just my thoughts, one of the most dominating lineman I've ever seen play the game, because not only was he an unbelievable strength, but he had some speed like you would not believe. This dude could pull down the line and turn the corner and knock your block off. So I thought I saw a tremendous athlete along with a guy that was almost superhero strong, and coming from a small college, I think it was Sonoma State or something like that. I don't know how in the world these scouts even find these dudes, but somehow or other, he found his way onto a football field with the Cowboys and blocked for Troy Aikman, Tony Romo, done so many different things. I think he went to 11 Pro Bowls or something like that. Was just a ringer from the very beginning. And I had so much respect watching him from, within the same state. We had this kind of, love-hate relationship with the Cowboys because we did share the same state down there in Texas. But I had a lot of respect and reverence for his game, for who he was, because he was a dominant player, B.
Oh, man. I made sure I stayed out his way. I wanted to make sure I was no part of anything Larry Allen was doing. I didn't want to be nowhere near him because I thought, man, that's a losing proposition for me. So I just would revel from afar and watching film and like, boy, I feel sorry for our guys up there.
Let me ask you this.
I was like, I'm glad I'm not going against that guy right there, boy. I mean, I take T.O. all day. That right there is not happening.
Did you tease each other about that on Cowboy Week when you knew that some of those down linemen?
Anytime you play here's what, and at least on guys I played with on the defensive side, you got to give respect and props to those who are just elite. It's just there's no way around it. So you'd be like, "Whoa, you gonna be in for a battle this week? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Because we need to make sure you can hold the fort for us a little bit. It's gonna be tough, but defensive guys. So I always tease other players when you're going against those elite, impressive, talented players. It was no different if you went against Reggie White or something like that, right? Okay, guys wouldn't mess with y'all. Y'all old linemen were real sensitive.
Well, the thing is, you be careful in the trenches, because in the trenches is probably the only position that you can actually exact revenge the next play.
I know. That's why I stay up out of there.
I might have to chase your butt all around the field to catch you as the secondary guy. But in the trenches, we gonna butt heads.
Yeah, I had to hit every play. I did not. I have selectively decided when I wanted to hit somebody. So
what happened?
I was like, Larry. I was like, look at Larry Allen pulling right there. Did you see that?
Exactly.
I said, and coach would be like, why do you tell me rewind? I said, are you watching Larry Allen right there? Oh my God.
People can't see your fingers moving across the screen.
I was like, oh my God, man. I said, I've never seen a human being that big run that freaking fast. I did it when the Javon Curse ran around Samari Road, went out of bounds, came back in. I said, rewind it. Rewind that. He would have ran by me too. So look at that there. Boy, now, I'd even cheese Javon. Like, you did that one time. Why ain't you doing that all the time?
Oh, stop.
See, once you set expectations.
What happens then, like, if they called a blitz for you on that side against the Cowboys? What would you do?
He was a guard. If he had to come out and block me, I'd dive at his kneecap. I'd be like a little chihuahua. I wouldn't, but no way.
You know Blaine's nickname other than Hitman was, right?
Oh, man. I was
Scrappy.
Oh, man. There was no way.
You remember Scrappy, dude?
Yeah, but it goes back to what he was talking about earlier, where he was talking about size and being able to play. Like, sometimes he's the guy that goes against what people look for.
Yeah, exactly.
Which goes back to the Scrappy.
Now, see, Blaine is actually being very humble right here, because Blaine was a tone setter. Blaine was that maniac that would come down out of the sky and he would hurl his entire body at you, and you wished you hadn't done that. So Blaine's only enemy was himself, Hunk. It was himself.
Well, I had to make a name for myself, and they said, if not, you're going to get cut. So I said, I got to start doing some crazy stuff. You need to bring out some film back when I was a rookie running out on kickoff, just jumping over the wall and act like I'm crazy. I said, I'm never doing that again.
What's the wall, Blaine? What are you talking about? What's the wall?
Right, that doesn't even exist today, right? That's crazy.
Me and Henry Ford were on the wall.
I know. I was like, y'all want me to what? I was like, oh, man. I said, I'm never doing that again. No way, no how. If not, I'm going back home and I'm selling insurance.
You are lying through your teeth.
That's exactly as Greg Williams. He was a special team coach then. I said, jump over what? Man, I was a helicopter.
Oh, my God.
I was like, I didn't know where I was going to land.
OTAs are going on, minicamp is going on until Thursday. Tomorrow we'll catch up with Jordan DeJani. We'll get his thoughts about the NFL and, of course, the things that are going on at 460 Great Circle Road. That's going to wrap it up for here and for us right now. Actually, we're going to hand it off to 3HL. They're up next, so get ready to listen to Babs, the Sledgehammer, Ron Slay, and, of course, the Mayor, Brent Doherty. But in the meantime, B.
And in between time,
peace.